Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. Well, my guest this morning, Dr. Kayode Isuola, Senior Research Fellow of Governance at the University of Lagos. Thank you for coming on, Kayode.
Thank you, Yori, for having me.
Indeed, our pleasure. And Mr. Dotun Shodunke, he's an educationist. He's National President, Association of Tutorial School Operators in Nigeria. And we shall also be linking up with JAMB spokesperson, the Joint Admission and Matriculations Board spokesperson, Dr. Fabian Benjamin. I guess that really just tells you where we're going this morning. It's the new regime following a policy statement that has just come out, that broke yesterday. The cutoff mark for students seeking admission into Nigerian universities has now been scrapped. It used to be a JAMB thing, has been scrapped. Individual universities will be able to determine their own points, their cutoff point as per their preference, and we'll look at that. Let me see if let me just start off with Dr. Fabian Benjamin, the JAMB spokesman, because he has to nip off to some other meeting. Good morning, Dr. Benjamin.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Indeed, our pleasure. Now, how is this to be seen? Is it something of a mixed blessing, or is it a definite positive step? Or but just give me your impression, because we've been with this for quite a while. And what was the real reasoning behind scrapping the central JAMB one and allowing individual universities to come up with their own cutoff points?
Thank you very much for that for this opportunity. It is not absolutely correct to say that something has been scrapped. You can only scrap what is in existence. We've never had what is being referred to as a cutoff point in the actual sense of what the public refers to it as cutoff point. And in that case, so we are not scrapping anything. What we have done is just to put the old wine in the new bottle. We want to also satisfy the yearning of the public to put certain perspectives, certain things in the right perspective. The misconception ab initio has always been that when we talk about minimum score, people take it as that is a cutoff point, and once you have that, then you are bound to be admitted in the institution that you have chosen. What we've done now is just to adopt best global practices, where institutions are allowed to determine their minimum score, where institutions are allowed to set their admission criteria, and students are also given that opportunity to select among the competing institutions which one they prefer to go to. With this, institutions will now pick, candidates will now pick based on certain variables, maybe demand, maybe subscriptions, and other things like that. So what we've done yesterday, what the policy meeting did yesterday, was to just approve the various submissions of the tertiary institutions, and then to allow them to go and set up their admission criteria. What they will do by that is to send to us whatever they feel that this is their own admission criteria, and we will now key it into the CAF Central Admission Processing System to ensure that once we begin the process of admission, the goalpost is not changed in the middle of the game.
Okay.
Don't forget, one of the roles of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board as a regulator is to ensure that a level playing ground is created for every candidate that aspires to go to any of the tertiary institutions in Nigeria. And by doing that, we came up with what we call the Central Admission Processing System. And we collect all requirements before the process commences. You give us whatever you feel like is your minimum cutoff point per program by program. You know what the public is always talking about, the general cutoff point, that what they expected that should have come out yesterday. The uniform cutoff minimum score that maybe is being announced at the policy meeting. What we have now is that institutions will now set up their minimum score program by program, and then this candidate will be communicated. Once you have that, then it's a minimum, as the name implies. Once you have that, you have crossed the first Rubicon. You are now qualified to be considered. That doesn't mean that you are now admittable. You are only qualified to compete with other candidates who also pick that institution or that program as their own, as their choice. So all of you will be put in a global basket, and then you will now be considered on the merit of individual scores.
I see. Well, thank you very much for that clarification, Doctor. The other point, because I know that time is really at a premium for you, and thank you for squeezing us into so many things and meetings that we know you have to attend today. The other point was 2 other subjects were added to enlarge the basket, so to speak.
Yes. What we if you look at the trend now, technical education is the aim thing. And we're looking at how we can incorporate the demand. You see, education must also be seen to address the demand of the society. Of late, if you have been in the news, you would have had a uproar about doctors leaving the shores of Nigeria. That, for me, is a positive development. But it's left for the nation to see how they can turn it into a positive development. At least we now have something that we can also export positively. And people who are investing in education should also see that as a demand function. That, okay, there's a high demand for medical doctors. Why can't we invest heavily in the profession to see how we can now be churning medical doctors for the global market? So for me, it's not something that we should look at it from a negative point of view. We should look at it from the positive point of view. And what we are also doing in enlarging the basket of this subject is to see how we can bring other subjects that also propel this market. That also, in the final analysis, will train, will groom professions that will be that Nigeria can also export out to the global market. That will also be useful even internally, not to talk of even exporting it to other clients out there. So that is what we are doing. We are being proactive. We are also looking at the trend. We are looking at the demand vis-a-vis the supply, and we are trying to see how we can also innovate to ensure that in a short run, at least, we bring up something that can satisfy not only the local market, but even the international market.
A final question, Dr. Benjamin. There's the notion that we produce far too many candidates for our universities, according to some. What effect do you think this policy is going to have? Will there be a further increase in the number of students seeking admissions into Nigeria's universities? Will this require us to come up with more universities and those kind of questions?
No, at the moment, we have a very skewed system. So it's difficult for you to even say there are no opportunities there, that whether we are producing much more than what the university can absorb. Because if you look at it globally, you would have seen that the vacancies are actually not filled. If you do a comprehensive analysis, you see that the vacancies are not actually filled. There are preferences that are there is a high suspicion towards certain disciplines. If you take medicine that I just mentioned now, you take law, you take maybe engineering and stuff like that, you will see that 90% of the sign inclined students who want to read this particular profession. And then when you do analysis, university education, that's degree versus NC and ND, you will also see that about 90% of candidates apply to universities as against polytechnics and then colleges of education. So when this admission, at the end of the admission exercise, you would have seen that there are a lot of open spaces in the colleges of education, in the polytechnics, and even in the university for certain programs like agriculture and educational education. So we must find a way of balancing. So it would be wrong for somebody to say we have much more than we can absorb, because the reality on ground shows that we have spaces that are not taken up. So, but it's a chain thing. It's something that we have to integrate the society. We talk about teacher education. There must be something that motivates somebody to want to read education in such a way that, okay, these people want to take up these spaces that are there. So it will be wrong to say we have much more than the system can take, because there are spaces that people are not willing to take.
Indeed. Well, I want to thank you very much, Dr. Fabian Benjamin, Joint Admission and Matriculations Board spokesperson, for speaking with us this morning. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you very much. I heard that one of your guests there would have loved to hear him speak also.
Well, by all means, could you just help us with your camera, please? If you look at your camera, you have sunk a bit to the bottom of the frame. There you go. That's excellent. So stay with us, and let me. I've already introduced the guests, and just to go back again to doing so, there's Dr. Luka Adesuola, Senior Research Fellow of Governance, University of Lagos, and on my left is Mr. Dotun Shodunke, who is an educationist and national president of the Association of Tutorial School Operators in Nigeria. Now, still staying with us, Dr. Benjamin, I'll go over to Kayode Eswola. He was making the point that concept that we have too many students vying for limited spaces, says facts show to them that there are, in fact, on the contrary, many places that are not taken up. And so, you know, so how did this whole idea come about that we can't even accommodate all the students that want tertiary education?
Yeah, I agree with him 100% that idea is a street idea. It's not scientific. It's not backed by statistics at all. I'm in the system, and I can tell you what happens. The reality is that Nigerians and Nigerian parents, as well as students, either by accident or design, have preferences for certain courses.
Okay.
I want my son to be a medical doctor if he's science inclined. I want my son to be a lawyer if it's in the other way around. Every other course to the Nigerian people, parents and students alike, is an appendage.
How about engineering?
And so,
how about engineering?
well, it's also an appendage.
Okay.
I mean, you know, so you now see the application skewing towards these two courses at the expense of others. One. Two, the polytechnic and the colleges of education are grossly under-patronized, more so when they are not located within the cities. So you have many state universities that are desperate to have students on their program that do not have, while you are competing for the very few spaces in the cities and the prominent university, and again, the prominent courses. That's what we see in the system. And of course, you know,
I see.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. Would you like to add to that, you know, yourself?
Well, I want to agree, but not completely. You see, when you talk about the problem we have right now in our institution, it is more of a carrying capacity problem. A carrying capacity problem. Let's put into consideration the school my friend works. That's the University of Lagos. What is the carrying capacity of University of Lagos? Vis-a-vis those people demanding, you know, to gain admission there. Why should Dr. Benjamin be struggling to explain certain things? It means...
Such as, where did you think there was a bit of a struggle?
Oh, I think it will be like only doctor and I that will understand what he was saying fully.
Okay.
Because we're in the system.
Okay, but I thought anybody who speaks and understands English could understand the explanation he gave.
All this, we first fix cutoff mark, and later we don't fix it again. Then school will now look into it. Then it wasn't like that before. Cutoff mark was cutoff mark those days. When you say cutoff mark, there was no pre-cutoff mark. You see, all this bottleneck is as a result of carrying capacity. We don't have space in most of our so-called grade A universities.
Okay.
And this is made by human. This is made by the people I call academic terrors.
Oh dear.
Right? And they are the one at the ends of affairs. If things were like this during the time of JAMB registrar, Dr. Fabian and co, many of them will not go to school. Many of them will not go to school.
Okay, so you think that...
we don't need all this grammar. Let us face the real thing. What is happening to TET Fund? Who stole all the money?
Oh dear.
The capacity of Unilag, they admit maybe about 7,000. What is the process? Very fraudulent. I will tell you, is your school, say it if I'm lying, less than 2,000 out of this 7,000 will be admitted through the real way. That is based on your brilliancy.
Okay.
They call it merit. The remaining 5,000 or thereabout, right, is all this former senator, former this, if you don't know anybody,
Dean's list,
even local government,
VC's list,
even King's list,
even
and so
Kabiesi's
on,
list.
Kabiesi's list. And that is what Dr. Fabian was saying, that we are going to monitor. Are you really monitoring? We should stop deceiving Nigerians.
Dr. Benjamin, would you like to come in here? Would you like to interject anything?
Yes, I want to come in. You see, I want to really make this passionate appeal to all platforms like yours. Education is a very serious business, and I mean it. It's a very, very serious business. It's at the root of our development. And at times, you see, when we have people who just drive pleasure in, it is easy to just have a sweeping allegation. You say people are corrupt, people do this thing all this, and you go to bed and sleep. You see, when there are processes. Why am I saying education is a serious business? When you are discussing education, you should be able to have people that have the background that will understand what education is all about. When you talk about since 1978 that JAMB had come to be, even the first admission we conducted was a product of carrying capacity. There is no system anywhere that is not planned. If you don't have a capacity, which means you're running a system that is not planned. You must, even a hospital, you must have at the back of your mind that this hospital and building should be able to accommodate 30, 40, 50 people. That is your own plan. That is your own capacity. You can't have a system that does not have a capacity. It doesn't operate anywhere. The universities, the polytechnics, the colleges of education, they have capacity given to them by the regulatory agencies. And it has always been so. The cutoff point is talking about the minimum score as we refer to it. It's a minimum score. If you have 200 candidates that score, for instance, you say medicine, and you say the cutoff point for medicine, let me use the word cutoff point in code so that people will understand. You say the cutoff point, which is the minimum score for medicine, is 250. It's a minimum score. And you have a capacity that you want to admit only 100. You have now taken the minimum score at 250. And then you have 400 people that have scored 250 and above. You bring all of them in the basket. All of them have gotten the minimum score. You don't go a step further to see how do we select the best out of this number. That is the issue.
I see.
That is where the process is. And for every university, there are guidelines has been prescribed by the proprietors. For federal universities, it says 45% merit, 35% catchment area, 20% educational less developed. And the 45% merit is merit. If you come to our platform on the CAP system, you will see how these candidates are displayed in the order of ranking. And the first 45, they have in a different color. What that means is that whether you like it or not, whether the institution likes it or not, they must keep the 45%.
Okay.
The 35% is catchment. For a university like University of Ibadan or University of Abuja that has all the state of the federation as the catchment area, it will share that 35%. If it is 100 candidates that program has at its own carrying capacity, 35%, which is 35, that 35 will be shared across the nation, the state of the federation. And each state must have at least one candidate from that ratio. So you go on and on. Then you come to educational less developed states, where a lot of people want to make noise and say, why do you have educational less developed? This is practiced all over the world. Talk about affirmative action and all this. They are all products of less advantaged people.
Okay.
Go to University of Connect.
One moment, Dr. Fabian. Let me get Dr. Izuola to come in on the matter, because your school, admissions into your school is one of the most highly sought after in the country. So I'm sure you have, and you've also heard that, well, according to, our friend here.
According to Dr.
Oh, yes, that all sorts of shenanigans are going on in the admission policy there.
I'll respond this way. I take a serious exception to the reference to University of Lagos as a fraudulent place when it comes to admission.
Not fraudulent.
I can tell you, I am not the public relations officer of the University of Lagos. I'm also not the chairman admission committee, neither am I the admission officer. But I can tell you, as the JAMB man spoke, the University of Lagos makes every possible effort to follow the criteria laid by JAMB to ensure that admission is fair. you could rightly say there are possible human errors of very insignificant percentages. I will accept that because there's no perfection in the affairs of men. But that's the deliberately bringing errors.
Errors, really, as opposed to schemes.
There could
as
be.
Opposed to schemes.
There could be. Mark my word. There could be, because there's no perfection in anything in the world. But that the mainstream, it's not based on merit, it's fraudulent. I will take serious exception. And then the information that my good friend here is my friend. The information he needs to get has been supplied by the JAMB. But the second one is that when you say University of Lagos, for instance, takes 7,000 as carrying capacity, and you have about 150,000 candidates applying to the university, you know, as well as I know, that among the 150,000 applying, you still have those who have polytechnics. Because now when you fill in your JAMB form, you pick one university, one polytechnic, one college of education, as the case may be. That 150 is spread across what you have, across the 3 cadres of institution. That's number one. Number two, there is nowhere in the world where you say everybody who applies for a particular program must be admitted. That is why the exam board is created. That's why the university is created. It's a benchmark thing. It's a gatekeeping thing. So that you'll be able to place those who deserve university education in the university, those who can cope with polytechnic education into the polytechnic and college of education. One mistake we are making in Nigeria, and we all fell into this mistake when we came here, we kept talking about universities as if JAMB is all about universities. No! There are students who are applying to universities who have no business in the universities.
There you go.
There are very brilliant students whose places are polytechnics and even colleges of medicine. In fact, to cap it up, I've always criticized the Nigerian government for making requirement into the college of education the lowest, because education should be the most serious thing in the society. The best of the brains should go there. Now when you now say people who score 110 out of 400 are the ones who will be teachers, who will teach your son, my daughter, and your own children tomorrow, we are simply practicing what in computer they call garbage in, garbage out. So I will agree if Dr. here, my friend, says we need policy overall. But attacking an institution, I will take exception.
Please. And then, but one thing that is being made clear that maybe a lot of people knew, but maybe a lot of people also didn't know, that the cutoff point is the lowest possible, you know.
In fact, it's not cutoff, it's pass mark.
Okay.
That's what's supposed to be called.
In fact, I need to,
so you now come and say,
I need to clarify one or two things.
Okay, yeah.
I only said, for example, I didn't say Unilag is corrupt.
Okay. I take it.
I didn't say university is corrupt.
Okay.
You know.
And for anybody to say that certain people are not qualified to talk about education, I know my friend here will take exception to that.
No, I also
Some of us are out there. We are relating directly with these students.
In fact, you are the practitioners, and we give you that respect.
Some people are just privileged to be somewhere, and we are outside, we are on the road. And if you want to
point what I'm saying,
point that we should underrate one another.
Do you understand? If you are saying what I'm saying is wrong, go out there, go and interview these children. I interface directly, right? I talk directly with them.
With these youth.
These people don't see them. They just sit down somewhere in the AC. My friend used to be like us, so he knows what I'm talking about. But people like any other person here, right? They sit in the office and just look at statistics. I'm coming. And just talk about policy.
Subliminal shots are...
With 1978, according to what was said, 1978 carrying capacity policy, certain policy was introduced. And it listed the admission method, right? There is less education, less this, less that, merit for this percentage. And we are still using such policy till now, and that is what I am saying.
We can criticize
that is what I am criticizing. I am saying that if that policy remains, right, it means a lot of people that are qualified, right, to be great people later through education, possibly university education, the way Nigeria is, will not have the opportunity to. Now, that was why I mentioned TED Fund. let the Senate probe TED Fund. If TED Fund was utilized well, UNILAG carrying capacity will be double by now.
Okay, you are making that point.
That is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
There is so much corruption
I wish
going
we
on.
had somebody from TED
going
Fund
on.
here.
Yes, yes.
There is,
Yes.
we need to find out about what is happening to TED. The last time Senate raised the issue of TED Fund during Saraki, it was stepped down, and you should know the method, what is happening. And somebody will say, I should not allege. Please take me to anywhere, take me to court.
Okay.
I am passionate about this education thing. There's so much fraud going on. TED Fund, if TED Fund was fully utilized, right, the carrying capacity will increase, the cutoff mark will be reasonable. How can a candidate score 320 in JAMB? Score about 75% or 80% in post-JAMB? Had out of 5 A's in the major 5 subjects, had like 4 A's and 1 C, and could not get admission.
Okay.
All in the name of it's a high cost, it's a high cost.
Okay.
The same student would travel abroad, or even very poor ones, they are doing very well. Okay. Consider the destiny of these children and stop speaking grammar. That's what I'm saying.
Gentlemen, especially you people that are educationists, you know, you need to, there's a sense in which you need to set the example for the rest of us. But coming back to you, sir, Dr. Benjamin, the point that was brought up about JAMB not being exclusively for universities, the polytechnics, the College of Education in there, and the point also being made that is JAMB inadvertently devaluing the importance, strategic significance of colleges of education by, it appears that somehow the lowest sort of a mark will go towards the it's a lot easier to get into a college of education rather than the other universities. What would be your commentary on that?
Well, you see, for us in JAMB, we want to be as realistic as possible. We don't want this situation where we just flow with the tides and people say things and then we begin to dance to the tune of the public wish and stuff like that. Education, I told you earlier, is a function of demand. What people call cutoff point, the minimum score, is also a function of demand. Demand in the sense of frustration.
Well, when you say a function of when you say a function of demand,
I'm coming to that.
I'm going to look at the strategic importance of colleges of education and JAMB's attitude to them.
I will come to that.
Okay.
I will come to that.
Okay.
There are about 3 flanks that I want to address here because my colleague there talked about minimum score, 120 and stuff like that. When most of us went to school, especially most professors now, they went through high school and all those things. And the minimum acceptable score for high school for admission is 2 pass. And when you look at 2 pass, that's 2 E. And an E is 2 points. That is 4 points. You are expected to get 4 points. And some of them are professors today. And very sound professors in their own field of endeavors. But that is not what I'm saying. You see, this thing is a function of demand. You take a college of education today. Less than 10% of the total subscription in 2021 applies to college of education. The whole college of education, both federal, state, and private. You take a particular college of education, you single one college of education out with a carrying capacity of, let's say, 6,000 per annum. That college of education is having a subscription of less than 500. It has a capacity of 6,000. It is having a subscription of less than 500. People that are willing to go to that college of education, less than 500. And somebody now tells you that just the cutoff point, the minimum score to 200. And you are even putting at 120, you have only 500 who are willing to go to that school. You now take it up to 200. Only God knows, will you have any candidate there? But that is not even the issue. The point we should also make is that let's look at what is this minimum score all about. If I am going in a degree program using the direct entry platform, and I write maybe IJMB, any of these A-levels, I am expected to have 2 A-level passes. 2 A-level passes. And a pass is E. If I have 2 A-level passes, I'm already qualified for admission. It depends on the level of competition. That's other subscribers, other candidates who are also competing for this particular program. That is the only thing that can push me out. Okay. But if I have less competition, I can't be admitted with 2 points. Then you have a candidate who scored 120. People are talking about, Mr. Sodeto has talked about people going to London, going to everywhere. These people, they get there with 0 cutoff, with 0 minimum score. The only admissible requirement as defined by the Arusha Convention is 5 O-level credits. What JAMB does is a ranking examination. Ranking in the sense that we have a program, we have more people competing for this program. What do we do to ensure that we create fairness, equity for everybody to compete, to give everybody a level playing ground?
Okay.
And then we'll come up with a ranking examination. If tomorrow in Nigeria we have enough spaces for everybody, we may not even need to conduct examination again.
All right.
We just look at the O-level institution, we look at the O-level, and then do the selection this with the O-level, just as it's done elsewhere. But because we have seemingly much more than we can accommodate in most of these programs. When you talk about medicine, for instance, you will have a situation whereby a candidate will score even 350. But by the time you put him in the global market, in the basket, you discover that with his 350, he is number 400 or number 300 on the ranking order.
Okay, one moment, please. Dr. Benjamin, one moment, please. Please stay with us. We've got to take a break now, but please stay with us. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Thank you very much for electing to stay with us beyond what we earlier thought was possible. Kade, I'm going to come to you as soon as we come back, and we'll also open the phones. We guess there might be some students or parents or educationists who want to contribute to the matter. Stay with us, please. Well, thank you for staying with us, or indeed for joining us if you've just arrived. We have Dr. Olukayode Isuola, Senior Research Fellow of Governance, UNILAG, Dr. Shodunke, Educationist, and National President of Tutorial Schools Operators in Nigeria. And we have Dr. Fabian Benjamin, JAMB spokesman, with us. It remains for, Kayode, if you wish, to come in on this matter. Because I was getting the impression over there from what the spokesman was telling us that things also worked out on the level of supply and demand.
No. I significantly feel that it should not. The not there is emphasized. It should not. Education in a nation is too important to be left to the principle of demand and supply. Maybe this has to go back as feedback to JAMB and by extension the Ministry of Education. The board is set up as a board. And one of the functions of a board anywhere in the world is to shape policy framework for the government. Once you operate at that field and you see that demand is skewed, that can come naturally towards these courses and these courses at the expense of these courses. What you then do is write policy advice for the Ministry of Education and other stakeholders to readjust the system in such a way that will not be skewed the way we are skewing.
Okay.
Everybody wants to be medical doctor because he or she has the impression that that profession is lucrative. But he knows he doesn't want to go to College of Education or become a teacher because he will never be paid a salary that can take you home. ASU is on strike every year. We keep shouting that this sector must be revitalized. This policy should support it. Okay. So what we are saying is that part of the duties of the board, JAMB, is to help government in re-engineering the policies about education, so that this skewness is artificial. This artificial skewness will not be there. Will you not be surprised that 1,500,000 people will apply for engineering in a course where you really have no factory, no industry? What are they doing? They have this impression that engineering is more important and probably more lucrative and is better to take abroad. And that is why the Nigerian state trains everybody with the taxpayers' money. But the people you train will now package themselves and go out and serve another economy, pay tax there at the expense of the Nigerian. If you run a country that way, you are perambulating. Okay,
Dr. Fabian, I know you'd like to say something about that, but I've got to take a caller, one of our callers who has called in, so please bear with us. Good morning, Mazi Okorafo. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, our guests in the studio and Sky. Honestly speaking, JAMB has come back to bring us back to the 80s and 90s. That what I would advise JAMB is that JAMB should conduct their exams for only 2 days, not a prolongation of keeping exams to 8 days, 9 days, or 2 weeks. At least JAMB should try as much as possible build centers themselves. At least each state, they build one center that will take up to 1,000 or 2,000 candidates in a day. It will help us because the situation of extending this exam is not healthy. And you were talking about science subject. Look, when you talk about science, so many children now rush to science subject because they feel that when you go and do medicine or any other science-oriented courses, you get a job, especially medicine. At least you are sure of job. That's why you see people rushing to science subject, leaving others. At the end of the day, you see that the science subject people are rushing to that. Many of them are not properly groomed. At the end of the day, what do we have? We still have problems. Now, you ask yourself, what JAMB has done now? Will the government monitor it? That is another question. This is another task on parents. You go back, you talk about state funds. State funds should tax assist private universities. Look, the best option for us to carry along polytechnic and go to university is that if a candidate is registered for JAMB exam, he should register either for university or college of education or polytechnic, and all of them should be of the same uniform. That is why you see people workers complain about HND and BSc because of the entry requirement. Look, government should bring people that know what they call the education is trained, chartered education to come and handle Nigerian school system. Not a question of when you go and bring somebody who may do anything.
All right, Mazi. Mazi, thank you very much for your contribution. And I believe you're of the education community yourself. I think they must have cut him off. Coming back to you, Dr. Benjamin, would you like to comment on some aspects of what's been said?
Thank you very much. I agree with my friend there in the studio that there should be
Dr. Iswala.
Yes, there should be conscious policy to stimulate interest in some of these programs if we want to really address some of this issue of demand and supply.
Thank you.
Because if somebody knows that at the end of the day, if I study, if I pick up a program in education, I will have a job, and when I have a job, I will be well catered for and all these things. There won't be any challenge and all this. And I want to tell you that if these programs are evenly subscribed, we will have much more than enough space. The competition will even be less. The pressure will not even be there at all. But because everybody wants to read a particular program and all these things, so much pressure is put on those particular programs, whereas a university may not end up not even getting students for certain departments. In fact, when you take physics, education, and other some of these programs, candidates are forced to go into those programs against their will because they cannot have what they want. So I quite agree with that. But it's a gradual thing. It's a gradual thing. There is no mention that we have enough spaces for it aspiring youth and stuff like that. But as a body, we have a mandate that has been given to us, and we're doing that. And at any opportunity, the registrar, any fora, is always hear this particular view out that, look, we must do something consciously to encourage teacher education, to also encourage technical people from going to technical and teacher education, because that is where the development is really. Until your technical component is strong, you will not be able to create employment for the teeming population, or you have unemployed youth and stuff like that. So we're doing that.
All right.
That is by the way.
Okay. But 1 second, please, because I've got to bring on another caller who has come in the meantime. Reverend Dominic, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chief Yore.
Okay.
Good morning, guest.
Yes.
Yore, let's elevate this discussion to 21st century understanding. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Let's elevate this discussion. Yore, what we must be talking about in Nigeria now is how to educate our children. If you have 1 million people pursuing university education, what is wrong to accommodate them? What you're talking about is not about cut-off point or medicine or engineering or law. We must think a way to educate people who want to have education. Why do you have a nation that people with about 1 million people will seek admission, we accommodate 300,000 people, next year they go back again? Why do we have that kind of a nation? It is a truth today that most things that fuel this terrorism is illiteracy. If a man is well educated, he will know that to pick a gun against his nation is against his own self. But illiteracy is part of all this. If we can educate Nigerians in all over the world, I travel. Americans are not brilliant more than Nigerians. American children are dummy. Nigerian children are so brilliant. Why can't we give them education? Let's leave a big phone and not take phone. And let me say this. When we want to discuss about issues in Nigeria, we should leave away corruption. Corruption has become a way of life. In the education system, it has its own corruption, and it is endemic with it. Let's leave the corruption alone. We live with it as a disease. We overcome it because they are part of us. But let's talk about how to educate Nigerians. Whether you're going to college of education, whether you're going to polytechnics, whether you're going to university, Everybody must be educated.
All right, thank you very much, Reverend Dominic. Coming back to you, actually I would have gone to in my other guest first, but I've got to come back to you, Dr. Fabian Benjamin, because I understand you must leave us imminently. And thank you very much for staying this long. So go ahead, please, Dr. Fabian.
Let me address that misconception. The board is doing everything humanly possible to ensure that a reasonable number of candidates that apply each year that are qualified for admission are admitted. This notion of saying over 1 million candidates apply and 300 is not correct. I will give you this statistic. Last year, we had about, let's say, 2 million candidates applying to JAMB. Out of these 2 million candidates, by the time we did analysis of who and who is qualified, we were able to arrive at only about 900,000. Because you must have the O-level requirement, you must have the right combination for that program. If I want to read medicine, I must have the right combination. I must have 5 O-level credits for me to be qualified to be admitted into that program. Out of the 2 million, only about 900,000 were actually qualified for the programs that they picked. And out of these 900, we had admitted over 700,000. Over 700,000. And out of the 200,000 that were not admitted, about close to 100,000, we are giving other programs, but they declined. What that means is that they were admitted, but they didn't want to take those offers because it was not the programs were not the programs that they actually wanted to go in for. So it is wrong for somebody to assume that a reasonable proportion of these candidates that apply to JAMB are not admitted. We admit at least close to 80% of these candidates. Because if you look at the ratio of who and who is qualified, you will see that 50 to 60% of these candidates
80%. Doctor, did you just say up to 80% of applicants who reach the minimum standard?
Out of 80% of those that are qualified, those that are qualified, those that have 5 credits.
80% of those that are qualified.
Those that are qualified, yes.
Oh, okay. Let me thank you very much, Dr. Fabian Benjamin. I understand that you have to get away now. Thank you very much for contributing to the program.
My pleasure.
All right then.
Thank you, and let me thank the guests there.
Yeah. All right then.
And I apologize for leaving earlier. And
okay then. It's all right. Dr. Did you want to come in? Has things been explained? Put in a different or better perspective for you.
It's a bit painful that. Dr. Fabian, just left. But what I want to say is that the system is faulty. The system. I
saw you nodding in agreement. So was Kawade. When the viewer, it was Reverend Dominic, made the point about, look, this line, why are we spending so much time here when there are other aspects, other kinds of education that can be contributory to national development?
Yes. Do you see, I think that is the perception of people generally. And that's not the work of JAMB, as it were. I think we need to sensitize people and let them know other options available. That this university thing, even, you don't need to force yourself in there.
Universities, even colleges of education.
There are options. Yes. There are options.
Technical colleges.
And that is what we tell. That's what I tell my members to tell their students. Yes. And they are taking to it now. But let me quickly say something about the issue of that 80%. That is not true at all.
80% of qualified
I don't understand the definition of qualified. He said he was
speaking from statistics.
I think that is
news to me.
That's
even you, it's news to you.
That was after you challenged him. He had to say something as a spokesperson. When you get to Cotonou, Benin Republic, all the students in their university, they are from Nigeria. Ghana, we have our students there.
Kenya,
I have a lot of my students everywhere, and they were not ready to leave. It was as a result of JAMB frustration. Being frustrated by JAMB. And the funny thing is that a lot of this, because of this system, JAMB now decide to cash in on the system and start making unnecessary money. And that's where I want to challenge Dr. Fabian. 2,500 to change the course, and each time. So if UNILAG does not choose you, you can go to Ife, change 2,500. From Ife to Ibadan, 2,500. From Ibadan to Polytechnic, 2,500. From another Polytechnic to another Monotechnic, 2,500. I knew of a student that changed more than 20 times last year. JAMB system was programmed like that. That is the blood money that the registrar is declaring for federal government.
Okay, Donald in Port Harcourt, good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yeah. Quickly, please.
Okay. The point I want to make is that for the fact that the university, the College of Education, all of them have a capacity, a definite number to be admitted in every year, this kind of problem will always come. So we shouldn't portray it as a corruption. Now, let me pick on the word of the president of the Tutorial Association of Nigeria, try to bring out the corruption. I want to ask him, he said that there are some students who score up to 300 and something marks and they were not admitted.
Yes.
Now, my question is that among the people who, among the people who have been admitted, is there any one of the students that scored below the point of somebody who was not admitted?
Okay, I should react.
Well, okay, yeah. Thank you very much for calling.
Yes, and I want to use this opportunity to appreciate TVC. You are really doing well for these students. When we started that struggle that time, I brought about 2 of them on this program.
Well, on this station.
On this station, sorry, on this station, you know, and they presented their score. They're not given admission for their courses.
So, well,
and
Kayode had said earlier that he would allow that errors can happen.
No, it's because of the system. The system that was analyzed, all this 20% for merit, 10% for less education, 10% for, and we are saying that the present situation does not warrant that.
Okay.
It is either you find a way to probe TED fund and let TED fund perform well and increase the carrying capacity to accommodate this youth we are losing that are taking to drugs as a result of frustration, or you look at that method and remove some things there.
Okay.
Maybe reduce this educationally disadvantaged. I don't know how to. Then you must work on security. You must work on security. A lot of students are not ready to go to schools in the north because of security. In fact, a lot of students prefer to stay in Lagos. Parents will not allow their children to go out of Lagos because of security. And that brings about pressure on my friends' schools.
Okay, one moment, please. And that point you made about going to Cotonou and all the students there are Nigerians.
They are Nigerians.
It was only hyperbolic. It can't be that all the students there.
Okay,
but I understand. For
80%, just like you said. 80%.
I will add 15 more percent.
95%.
That's the way it is.
I am used to that system, and I
I'm
know
sure
that any private university in the Benin Republic is almost 99% occupied by
Dr. K, and somebody is adding 4.9%.
However,
Ahmed, I beg your pardon.
Yes.
Ahmed in Kaduna. Good morning. Quickly go ahead, please.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
It's good to get you today.
We're happy too.
Yeah. Good morning for the educationists.
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Uncle Yori, I'm a parent.
Okay.
I mean, my major nightmare now, my children is about to finish school, but I am afraid of the process of JAMB.
Yes.
Honestly, Uncle Yori, JAMB is frustrating the student and even the parents, particularly we the parents. Like what the president said, he is saying the truth. The issue is this. What even brings JAMB is the issue of carrying capacity. In the first place, if we don't look at JAMB, and if the university have the carrying capacity, every university aspiring student want to be a graduate, particularly with this dichotomy between HND and BSc or BA. Uncle Yori, if government can assist us, either regulate the JAMB or even to be sincere to you, if you are to consult, sincerely consultation to the public, people will tell you that they don't even want to jump in the process of admitting their children to university. Because so many children have been left behind. And we are in a country whereby you cannot get job. Each issue is also applied in terms of getting job. So if you are deprived to get admission for almost 3 years, and at the end of the day you got the admission, and before you finish the university, all this strike and the rest like that, before you get job, they will now look at your age and say you are completely out of it. Then where are you going?
Okay.
And everybody wants to live fine.
Yeah.
At least, please, my appeal to JAMB, they should regulate and look at the plight of the parents, particularly from the grassroots. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Kade, would you...
Yori, there are two critical issues here. Sure. From what you have as feedback from the public, and from my good friend who is representing tutorial, practitioners.
Yes, tutorials.
JAMB does not have a very good record in the public from the statistics. However, I don't envy JAMB also because of the population of Nigeria, the security issue that has made applications skewed towards a particular geographic location, which means it has to be addressed. I wish I was on that divide, but now I'm on this divide, so we have to balance the argument.
Indeed.
Two ways out, Yori. Number one, the public needs to be sensitized that university education is not for everybody. While I agree with you that 90% or 99% of the students you have in Benin Republic and other places are Nigerians, I also agree that they go to universities there.
Yes.
Hardly do they go to polytechnics or colleges of education.
Yes.
That speaks to something.
Even in the US.
Even in the
Everywhere.
US. That speaks to something that they see university education as the only way to join the elite. How much is the Nigerian state doing to change the orientation so that you know that it's like a pyramid?
Okay.
The university is for theory and research. The polytechnic is designed for middle-level manpower, those who will actually do the things. If we don't address this, we're going to run ourselves to the level of a society like US, in which you can, at the tip of your finger, collect 500 PhD holders on the street. But if your tap gets spoiled, to fix it, you need to spend the salary of a professor.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it here. I beg
so that
thank you very much. We're really going to have to leave it here. We've completely run out of time, but I know it's that kind of a subject. I'm so sorry, Doctor, because I know there's a lot more in there. So thank you very much, Dr. Shodunke, educationist, and also Dr. Kayode as well. And indeed, thanks to the JAMB spokesperson, Dr. Fabian Benjamin, who was on the program earlier. We'll see you tomorrow with a fresh edition. I'm Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.